we're talking about some of the scariest, most dangerous hellholes on the face of the planet. So let's get right into it. And we're kicking off the list with Petak Island Prison in Russia. So this prison is known for its incredibly harsh conditions and isolation from the mainland. Yeah, stuck on an island prison. That's bad. Bad for the prisoners, anyway. Just makes it a little harder to escape. You know, so I guess good for everyone else. This place has a nickname though that would probably send a shiver up your spine if you were going there, and not just because you'd be in Russia. It's often referred to as the Alcatraz of Russia, which is not a compliment. If you refer to something or someone as the Alcatraz of whatever, you are insulting that person or place. Don't do that. Be nice. But the name does fit for this particular location. This island hellhole holds some of the most dangerous criminals in Russia. And they spend 22.5 hours of the day cooped up in their cells. 22 out of 24 hours. That's a fair chunk of the day. Oh, and if prisoners happen to break any of the strict rules in place, they're sent to a small dark room in total isolation for up to 15 days straight. That's just the tip of the iceberg, too. Don't forget to tap that subscribe button if you are enjoying our content. We have plenty more coming your way on the daily. Next up on the list is what is often referred to as the most dangerous prison in the United States, ADX Florence. It was built back in 1994 and is what is known as a supermax prison. The place houses some of the biggest and baddest criminals in the country, ones that pose a severe threat of violence to staff and other inmates and just need extra security, more than you'd get in even a maximum security prison. But how do you get more extreme than maximum security? Maximum means like this is it, you've reached the wall, you're at the max. Apparently you just add super to the title. It's not just maximum, super maximum. One step above that, I guess, would be mega maximum prison, which doesn't exist yet. I imagine that's when we'll start putting people in with actual superpowers. Prisoners here are under watch though 24/7 and spend almost the entirety of their day in single cells. Some prisoners here are even barred from speaking privately with their own lawyers or family members, because I guess that's just how dangerous they are. They could just talk their way out of prison. Next up, we have a political prison camp infamous for its extreme human rights abuses, Camp 22 in North Korea. Not only would you never want to visit this place in case you did something wrong and ended up actually being detained yourself, but it's also in North Korea, so good luck even getting into the country. I mean, yeah, what can I say? It's a prison camp. Only time camp is good in a sentence, I'm learning, is when it has the word summer right before it. Pretty much any other kind of camp is not where you want to be. And based on the little information that's gotten out about this place, it sounds like hell. And remember, this is North Korea, so there's a lot kept under wraps. If the stuff I'm talking about here sounds bad, you know there are things going on that are 10 times worse in there. So a former prison guard actually talked about the state he'd seen some of the prisoners in, and it's pretty horrific. Not sure how much detail we can really get into here, but according to him, about 30% of the prisoners had life-altering deformities due to all the mistreatment. Missing ears, faces covered in cuts and bruises. Many were underfed, just completely inhumane. The saddest part is, though, not even really surprising. This is just what comes along with living under a totalitarian regime. Next up, we have Attica Correctional Facility. This prison is in Attica, New York, and became famous for the 1971 Attica prison riot. The facility was built in the 30s, and by the 70s, it had become severely overcrowded with harsh living conditions. The breaking point came in September of 1971, when prisoners revolted, protesting against the inhumane treatment by prison staff and generally poor living conditions. The riot lasted for 4 days, and it turned violent. In the end, the New York State Police were called in to regain control. The aftermath was brutal. During the retaking of the prison, law enforcement officers shot both inmates and hostages accidentally, and total 43 people lost their lives. 10 hostages and 33 inmates. Many others were also injured. Attica became a symbol of prison brutality and sparked debates about the treatment of prisoners. And the incident led to some changes in prison policies, but it also exposed deep-rooted issues in the US prison system. It's certainly not as dangerous now as many of the other prisons on this list, but the history of the place has definitely left an impression. Next, we head to Syria to explore Tadmor prison without actually going there. So, the wonders of the internet. This place is infamous for its brutal treatment of prisoners. Definitely has a grim reputation. Built in the 1960s, it's located in the desert near Palermo. The prison became rather infamous because of how bad its inmates were treated. Political prisoners in particular. There was overcrowding, extreme abuse. In 1980, a horrific event unfolded known as the Tadmor prison massacre. The Syrian government cracked down on prisoners, resulting in the deaths of hundreds, maybe even thousands. The exact number is still a bit unclear because of the secretive nature of the Syrian regime. A paramilitary force known as the Defense Brigade entered the prison at dawn and attacked prisoners in their cells. After the massacre, the prison continued to be a symbol of terror. In 2001, the Syrian government officially closed Tadmor, but reports suggest that parts of the facility were still in use for detaining political prisoners. Next up, we have Kwang Central Prison in Thailand. So this place is known for its very strict conditions. It's often ironically referred to as the Bangkok Hilton. This is a high security prison in Nonthaburi, Thailand. It's one of the most notorious prisons in the country. To put it plainly, Kwang has a reputation for being pretty tough. It houses a mix of inmates from common criminals to those on death row, serving long sentences or facing severe penalties. The conditions inside are often very harsh, with overcrowding being a persistent issue. Famously, for the first 3 months of an inmate's sentence, they are chained to leg irons, and those awaiting death row used to be welded into them permanently, but that practice has since been banned. Kwang is also famous for its implementation, of course, of the death penalty. Thailand has very strict special substances laws, and these types of offenses can result in very severe punishments, including death. Sante prison. This is a notorious French prison known for its overcrowded and harsh conditions. It's a bit of a redundant. I've never heard of overcrowding being a good thing. So from now on, if I say overcrowded, it's bad. It's bad. In straightforward terms, Sante has gained a reputation for being a tough place. Constructed in the 19th century, it has faced issues related to its aging infrastructure and insufficient space for its inmates. Overcrowding has been persistent, leading to concerns about the well-being of these prisoners. The prison has been criticized for its tough disciplinary measures as well, and reports of violence among inmates is not uncommon. Inmates have sometimes protested against these conditions, drawing attention to the challenges they face inside the facility, but the harsh environment mixed with the psychological toll of incarceration has also led to a number of inmates taking their own lives. Now, efforts have apparently been made to address some of these problems, including renovations and updates to the prison, but I probably wouldn't be adding this to my list of places to check out if I were visiting France. Want to see some dark stuff? Go to the Paris catacombs or something. The dead don't scare me nearly as much as the living. Next up is Carandiru Penitentiary in Brazil. Now, this place actually closed in 2002, but its history of violence and overcrowding made it absolutely infamous. Located in Sao Paulo, it has a dark and notorious history that reached its peak with a very tragic event that became known as the Carandiru Massacre. It was built in 1956. The prison became one of the largest in Latin America, designed to house around 3,000 inmates, but it often held more than double that number. And anytime you have overcrowding on that kind of scale, tension and violence is almost unavoidable. On October 2nd of 1992, a riot erupted. In response, the police were called in to regain control, but the situation very quickly spiraled out of control, resulting in what is now known as the aforementioned Carandiru Massacre. Military police entered the prison, and in the ensuing chaos, 111 inmates lost their lives, most of them unarmed and in their cells. The prison was eventually closed in 2002, and the remaining inmates were transferred to other facilities. Taking the next spot on list is Black Beach in Equatorial Guinea. This is said to be one of Africa's most notorious prisons. Yes, out of the entire continent. That's saying a lot. The prison was built during the Spanish colonial rule in the 1940s. Initially, it mostly held petty criminals, but by 1968, with the independence of the country, it started housing political prisoners as well, many of whom died in the prison. Wonder how. The biggest problem with this place is neglect. Prisoners are often denied basic amenities like food and healthcare. Many prisoners are also violently tormented. And we're gonna finish things off with Urumqi No. 3 detention center in Dabancheng, China. This is the largest detention center not only in China but possibly the entire world. If you think some of the inmates numbers I've mentioned so far are a lot, this place dwarfs them all. This detention center holds about 10,000 inmates or more if they were really jammed in there, like most of the prisons on this list. That's just an estimate based on satellite imagery and from what little reporters have seen from the inside. Chinese authorities keep a lot of stuff hush-hush, including the exact number of inmates currently housed there. But the place is 220 acres, twice the size of Vatican City. That sounds like a dystopian sci-fi movie kind of prison. The prison also holds what are referred to as vocational training centers, which have been described by former prisoners as brutal internment camps. And there's a specific group that is being targeted the worst, an ethnic minority in China called the Uyghurs, who are basically being thrust into these camps to do forced labor, which the government, of course, denies. With all that said though, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.